Hi, welcome back to another episode of We Be Lifin Pod, the podcast where we talk about the highs and lows about life and the what even is my life. I'm Sabina Richards, and this week we're talking about glow ups and setbacks. But first, before we get into the episode, I do want to address the fact that I missed an episode last week. I was off schedule because I had a health scare, and so I needed to follow doctor's orders, lay low, and get some rest. And so that I'm just going to take the time to remind us, I've said this before in previous episodes, that we need to take time out to rest. Regardless of whether we have a medical condition that we need to take prescription medication for and it's on a schedule or we're on a regimen, we don't need to be on that type of regimen for us to take time and rest. And I thought I was doing good. I thought I had it all under control, but my body said, girlfriend, I'm going to need you to sit down. So that's what happened. I apologize that we missed an episode. I have not put it on a schedule as of yet, but we are back on our weekly schedule as of today. So let's get into the episode. So this topic is very dear to me. It's kind of personal to me because when I think about myself, I'm always thinking about this next thing that I want to do. What's my next goal? And then along the way, we might get some setbacks, or we might not achieve the things that we want in the time frame that we want. And everyone loves a good glow up story, a great transformation. You know what I love? I love to see the house reveals and the new apartments reveals. I love the HGTV shows that goes when they do the flip and flop, when they used to do income property. Oh my goodness, what's her name? She's escaping me right now, but it'll come to me. I love all of those shows. So of course you see that transformation. One thing about those shows is that we also see the progress, the setbacks, the delays, the floods, the broken pipes. Once you open walls, you don't know what you're going to get. We see all of that on screen, but sometimes we don't, see that in life. We sometimes only see when an individual has achieved their goal, or when an individual has actually blown up, for lack of a better term. We don't think about the process it took to get there, right? So, and this is just what today's episode is about. Yes, we love a glow up, and we don't glow up just one time. Right? You can have many different areas in your life or many different moments in your life where you've grown up, right? And so we'll go through that. So this topic was, again, pretty personal because I took a insight of my life and just to see, where are my different areas that I've grown up and had setbacks, and how did I view that? Because if you have a setback, you can view it as the end of the world, or you can view it as a teaching moment where you learn from your mistakes, you brush it off, and you get back up, right? So that's the vantage in which we're looking at glow up and setbacks today, because setbacks are a part of the journey to get to the pinnacle, okay? So let's get into it. So of course, I like looking at definitions. Did I put my definition in here? Let me see. Okay, I did. So I like looking at definitions, and a glow up is defined as a person's transformation into a more attractive or more accomplished version of themselves. Right? A glow up is defined as a person's transformation into a more attractive or a more accomplished version of themselves, right? So that's what it is when we glow up. And again, it does not have to be just one time in your life. There are people who throughout the seasons always change their styles. Some people might think of that as a glow up because you have to change your wardrobe. Sometimes you're purchasing new items, or you just remix the things that you have, right? You could look at it in that aspect as well. So some key aspects of glow up or transformation. Okay. So it's not just a right away snap your fingers. It is a process. So there is a process to it. And it's not just only physical, tangible items, okay, where it's the new house or the new car or the increase in your title at work or your salary. It's those as well. But it could also be internal, what no one else sees. There could be a mental, an emotional, a holistic aspect of it. The physical, now because you are focused more on your health, you're focused more on your wardrobe and your attire, your fashion, your style, all of those different things. And you define what a glow up is for you, not someone else. Self-improvement is great because for a lot of people, and I'm thinking about my previous episodes where we talked about establishing boundaries. That's part of self-improvement, right? Because sometimes people don't say no and they're stuck doing things that they don't want to do, right? So even finding your voice is a part of that. You probably had a moment where you just agreed to everything and you were so concerned about hurting other people's feelings as opposed to being true to yourself. That could be part of your glow up. That could be a glow up. It doesn't have to be tangible physical items. In preparation for today's episode, I had the thought that we don't like to share negative things. And I think I referenced this when I talked about social media, right? Because social media it's a part of our lives. A lot of times when we are out here doing our glow of transformation, sometimes we don't share the rejections. So we're going on a job interview and we had 27 rejections. We may not share. We may only share when we receive the job. But I think maybe about a month or two ago, I saw someone posted on LinkedIn and they actually wrote a description of their job search. And they actually spoke on the number of rejections that they received. And I remember I had a friend who was going through a job search as well. And she would tell me stories of, maybe one or two people that she confided in that she was doing a job search. And then you have other individuals who will be checking in because they're concerned, but they're really just trying to monitor your progress to either talk bad about you or put you down. And I think my friend had mentioned the person who had checked on her was like, "Oh, you still didn't find a job? How many positions have you applied for?" And she expressed that she felt a bit discouraged. And I had to remind her, you're doing what some people don't do. Some people don't go out there. They don't put themselves out there. And applying and going through that job search, that's a job in and of itself. I remember when I had to go through that before I got established in my career or became established in my career, where I found a job, and then a lot of times it's the people who that helps you get in there. You have to prove yourself now, but you'll find in corporate that many times when new leaders come in, they bring their people. Right? And so I've been fortunate that those things have helped me, but my resume also speaks for itself. So there was a period where I can completely attest to feeling discouraged and feeling as if you're failing, as if you're not succeeding. But then when you get that job, that dream job that later on you're like, "Oh, get me out of here," right? For some people, not everybody. But later on when you get that job, that's your glow up. And you can now look back and say, "Wow, I worked a lot." And one of the things I can personally attest to, while you're going on these interviews, at least for me, I've worked towards selling myself. Because when you are on a job interview, that's technically what you're doing. You're marketing yourself and your skills. And some people may not feel very comfortable doing that, right? So I found that when I was going through that phase of job hunting, as I was reading through my resume and, having to talk about those things you put on there, because don't put stuff on your resume that you cannot speak to, right? The meme where it shows what you put on your resume, and then when you get in the job, but you talk about you a black belt and you not even an orange belt. I'm like, I don't even know the right belts, but I know a black belt is high. Very skilled, right? So while you're going through the interview process, you have to talk about your experience and your skills. And I don't know about anyone else, but in reviewing my resume, it gives me great pride and accomplishment to know that, wow, I am worth this price. I am worth this salary. My years of service, that's what you're paying me for. So I don't know about you, but I know when I went through that process. And I think that we should look at, job search and job hunting in that way. It gives us an opportunity to speak about our talents. That's part of growing up, because you're learning knowledge. In every position you're in, you should always look to learn more. Because once you have your knowledge, that's yours. And that's what organizations are paying you for. They're paying you for the skill that you're bringing to the organization. They're not paying you for what you did over there. What skills do you have that we can leverage in our organization to be a success? Okay? So, the definition of a setback there are many definitions of setbacks. Setbacks are defined in property lines. Setbacks are defined in physics. There's a lot of different definitions, but the one that is specific to this episode talks about when there's a hindrance, when there's a delay, and when something is slow in progress. So when we have setbacks, we might think that's an automatic no. Right? But I like to think of setbacks as in that phrase, man's rejection is God's protection. That's the way I look at it. I always think about the positive in a setback. I always take a moment to evaluate, okay, what did I do wrong? How can I improve? Maybe I'm not ready to go to that next level. So what do I need to work on, right? Your process, setbacks should be viewed as, what's the idiom that's used? Not the idiom, the phrase being forged in the fire. That's when I think about setbacks and the fact that it's a process that you're going through. Because the other way you can think about setbacks is like, when you think that you've got everything covered, you've planned for everything, boom, something happens that just throws you off, right? That could be an example of a setback. But how do we respond? How do we react in those moments? That's going to determine how we get across to the other side. Okay? So, like I said, when we're going through setbacks or challenges, right? If you want to look at it as a challenge and not just a setback, it's a challenge, right? Something that is momentarily hindering our progress. So how do we get rid of that? Some examples of a setback. I mentioned just a generalized one of sometimes we thought we had everything planned and then we have something that comes and just blows our plans out of water. A perfect example is, you got money saved, you're on track to save your money. I'm not talking about retirement funds and IRAs and things of that nature, but the old under the mattress type saving, right? So you're on track to do that and then boom, the car breaks down. You know what got me? I saw a commercial one time that they were in the car, and as soon as they made that final payment on their car note, I think the engine broke down, and I experienced that same exact thing. So that's an example of a setback. Now I gotta find money to fix that car. Now, I didn't know what was wrong with it, but I knew when I took it to get fixed and they said, this is how much it's going to be. I said, you know what? How about y'all keep that? It ain't worth it. It was out of warranty as well because I made the final payment and I did not get an extended warranty. So I can speak personally to something like that happening to me. Another simple example. Well, not simple, but one that, because we're not thinking about these major things. These are everyday things that could cause us to feel as if our progress is slowed down. So something as simple as, let's say you made your plan, you're going to go on this specific diet or the keto diet or whatever diet, you bought the meals or whatever the case may be, but you ended up eating a bucket of fried chicken with some pizza and soda. There goes your diet plan out the window. Or if we're in therapy and we out here crashing out, we just out here crashing out. So those are some examples of setbacks, just quick examples. You can think about your situation, your life, and see what examples fall for you specifically. It doesn't have to be these that I mentioned, but I'm sure that every one of us has had some form of experience of something like that. How do we react? How do we respond? Do we throw our hands up and say, oh my goodness, that's it? Everything is done. The world is coming to an end. No, we don't throw our hands up and just give in because of something minor, right? Our mindset is going to determine how quickly or how slowly we get to our glow up. Because during that setback process, we should be getting forged through that fire so that those challenges that come, I eat those. Those knowledge walls that are built up, then we get that knowledge so we get over those barriers, right? So that's what we should be doing. So a setback should not be seen as, now I'm never going to make it, or now it's going to take longer. It might, but during that process or during that period, it's not a death sentence. You're not a failure. Okay? So I've talked about, my example. I can definitely think about, and I see it clearly. I remember I was in junior high school, and I think we were asked about our future plans and what we want to be when we grow up. And I just knew that by the age of 25, I was going to be a pediatrician. I was going to own my private practice. I was going to be married and have some kids. I knew. This was in junior high school. I put this plan. I don't know what I was doing by 25. I can't remember. I was in somebody's school, and I think I was already in my field of HR, but I definitely was not a pediatrician because I realized very, very early on the sciences and math to do a career was not what it is. Then I wanted to be a forensic psychiatrist. I don't want to have not one thing to do with that DSM. I think we're now at the DSM-5. I don't want that. Oh, no. The psychiatrist, because the psychiatrists, they can provide meds and they make more money than a psychologist. Well, that was back in the day when I was researching the position. And the DSM is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual for Disorders or something like that. But DSM, I think we're at the DSM-5. Listen, I had one forensic psychology course, and I thought I was doing great. I got a C in that class. That was let me tell you something. I was so happy when I got that C, and I did not have to retake that course. I said, oh no, this is not for me. I can't do no forensic nothing. And then I was just like, I don't know what I want to do. I hadn't declared my associates yet. I was just taking prereq courses because I did not know what I wanted to do at that point in time. And I felt like a failure. I'm not even going to lie. That was such a horrible time for me because I didn't have a degree at that time. I didn't have my associates. I didn't have my undergrad. The jobs that I wanted, I couldn't get because they required a degree. It was a rough time. My mom helped me eventually. Where she worked, someone came into the office where she worked, and they were looking for an office assistant. And then my mom referred me to them, and then I got the job. And from there, that's where I was placed on a phone interview, because there was someone who worked at the job and their relative was a vice president, and they were looking to start doing their succession planning to train and bring someone else into the field to impart that knowledge that they had That's how I got my start. Well, I actually, in the company that I was working on by that time, there were so many different changes. I had started doing human resources in that company. So by the time I got the phone interview, I had an exposure to human resources. And that's how I got into the field. Someone referred me. I got a phone interview, and that person took a chance on me sight unseen. And I'm very thankful that they did. And I did not have my degree when I started in human resources. I went back to school because at that point, I had a focus. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wasn't confused anymore. So that's a personal story for me about glow up and setbacks. And, my glow up was when I got a job, a full-time job without having a degree. But then even better, I was getting my degree. I received my degree in my undergrad and worked in a field that was directly related to my degree. And at that point in time, you couldn't find that. There were so many people who went to school and have degrees in accounting, but then they went on to do, I don't know what else, right? So I've been so blessed that one phone call put me on a trajectory for my HR profession and career that I love, that I'm really good at, actually. Because math and science wasn't for me. My mom's a nurse, God bless her. I remember her when she was in nursing school. That ain't for me, God bless her. But we need somebody. Somebody got to be able to bring us back to what do you want me to say? But I'm just thinking, that's why I said this topic is so close to me, because I can think of different moments. I mean, another time was when I took the LSAT. I took the LSAT because I just knew that was the direction I was going to take. That was back in 2015, right? I took the LSAT and I did not get a score that I wanted, and I was so depressed. I was so sad, so dejected. And I was like, great, now what? And then I said, oh, there's a master's program. I'll take that. Directly related to my field. So now I have my bachelor's, I have my master's. I haven't given up on, law school. To me, that's like a dream deferred. Does it dry up like the raisin? I don't know the words. Don't quote me, okay? So don't come for me. But that's just my examples of areas in my life where, I have had glow ups and setbacks. I remember when I purchased my house, my first tenant was awful. Good riddance. My God, that's when my hypertension was triggered. So this topic caused me to go back and really take a look at the areas in my life where I had some glow ups and some setbacks. I don't know if it's more of the same, but I definitely can speak to this firsthand. So, how to embrace this process. So first and foremost, let's reframe setbacks, like I've been saying. Instead of looking at it as something negative, look at it as the process, part of the road to your glow up, whatever that may be. It may be school, it may be proper budgeting. I'm looking into the Monarch app. I'm doing some research into that to better budget. It could be that. Maybe you want that car. Can your finances support it? Ready to purchase your home, right? So what are your goals that you're looking to accomplish, and what's that process? We can make our plans, And God laughs sometimes, but we should still try to make our plans and work through them, right? So let's reframe setbacks from such a negative thing to from failure to I'm trying, or I haven't reached there yet. I'm working through it. Okay, so let's reframe setbacks. Let's celebrate small wins. So I talked about, if we set our diet plan, for example, I have a goal that I want to reach. I have not met that goal yet, but I've lost a few infinitesimal amount of pounds. I'm happy with that. I'm going to keep on my journey, right? So what's a small win for you? You might set a big goal, but you've only reached maybe first part. That's an accomplishment, because you could also sit and do absolutely nothing. You can have a lot of motivation, but take no action, right? So you got to also give yourself a break, right? Let's not be so hard on ourselves. We don't need to be Superwoman or Superman, right? There's a lot coming at us in life. So I think just taking the step out to actually go forward for your goals or your dreams or your plans, I think that's major. That's a great start. So celebrate small wins. Practice patience. Patience is something that I am still working on. God is still working on me with that. God is still working on me with patience, but we need it. We need it because, a lot of the things that we're going forward for in life, they don't come with the snap of your finger. They come overnight. A lot of times, many of us are in jobs we don't want to be in, and we have to be patient with the process because we don't want to do something irrational and then we're stuck and failing. There's a difference between working through your process or working to achieve your goal and you get a setback compared to you just did not make a good choice and now you set yourself up for failure. Let's not do that. Let's not. Okay? And then let's be consistent. That's it. Be consistent. If we know that to achieve this particular goal requires this amount of input or output from us, do it. Be consistent with it. Okay? There might be some things that give us a momentary setback. That's okay. We're human and it's a process we're going through. Okay? So let's reframe setback from being something negative. Okay? Let's go through the list one more. So let's reframe setbacks. Instead of something being negative, let's look at it as being part of the process, knowing that as we're working towards our goal, everything may not work out the way in which we would like it to. Let's celebrate small wins, whatever that is for you. My small win doesn't have to be the same as someone else, right? And we also need to stop looking at other people run their race. Let's run our own race. Okay, we define what is a glow up for us, not somebody else. We can always be celebrate someone else and be happy for them, but that does not discount us and where we are in the process. Okay, practice patience and stay consistent. So these are some of the key qualities and the key things we need to do to go through our process, meet our goals so that we can live in our glow ups and we can have our transformations and we can be showing our big reveals and we can make our major announcements for whatever it is we've been working on. Okay, so in conclusion, a glow up isn't about becoming someone new. I know that's probably what it is. A glow up isn't about becoming someone new, because you can't really just erase who you've been and what you've been through to get there, right? That's all a part of the process, right? But it's uncovering and rediscovering who you already are. right? So every detour, every pause, every stumble, every delay, that's just part of the process. And everyone's journey is different. So let's not, like I said, let's not look at someone else's, let's not look at someone else's journey or their process of what they do. Maybe there are some great tips that we can use that will help us along our journey, right? But we shouldn't mirror theirs if where we want to go and the way in which we go about achieving those things are different. Okay, so if this episode gave you some hope or some affirmations on what you're working on or what you would like to work on, or what you maybe paused and decided, I'm going to give it a break, but maybe this episode just reminded you, like, you know what, I'm going to work at my own pace, then that's great. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Okay? So thank you so much for your time. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.